Moving on to mastering. Now this is kind of a separate video, but not really. These are just slightly different. Some of them are the same plugins, but used for different things. ARC3, I think that's an obvious choice. MSED, I talked about this one earlier about how it helps with showing me my left-right balance and being able to make any plugin summon difference matrix is just awesome. So MSED is a freebie from Voxengo and it gets used. Nimbus, I just talked about this one. I do something called master bus or mix bus reverb, where essentially I, dial this wet knob all the way down to like, 10 to 20%. I made a video about this a long time ago called Reverb Glue, because that's what it is. It's like, just like with a mix bus compressor, reverb on the mix bus channel or the master bus channel, whatever you want to call it, or during mastering, glues everything together. It puts everything in the same space, but you have to make it subtle because you don't want it to dominate any other plugin reverb or any other track or send reverbs. Moving on, Slate VCC, once again, virtual mix bus. This is what separates this from like console and front DAW. Virtual mix bus brings it all together. And usually I'm going for, again, that SSL sound. I mean, Trident, I've done it before. Brett N, I usually just avoid. I have enough Neve saturation in my other plugins. Any of these four that I'm clicking on right now are clean and just subtle enough saturation. Now you can drive them, just increase this knob here or increase right here. But the bottom line is I like what it does to my sound. I don't know. It just like with everything else, it just kind of gels everything together. Now moving on to equalizers, I really, really, really like the Master EQ 432, which is a Soundtech emulation. I love it even more because you can make it full screen and the frequencies aren't small anymore. I mean, they're still kind of small, but they're like, a lot more readable, legible. Anyway, great sounding equalizer. You can make booster cuts without, really mucking up your mix. So I love it for that. And if not that plugin, then the 533 from Noise Ash or Pultec comes in handy on the mix bus. Don't really use it too much. I use it more if I have a hardware version of it, but I mean, Purple from Acoustica Audio is close enough. So anyway, Ozone, the equalizer, is another choice I could use. It's actually, I always call it the sleeper part of their plugins are their equalizers. Like the Ozone equalizer sounds awesome for the most part. I'm not going to go and say it's, the bee's knees or whatever, but they really did upgrade it for version 9. So I give props, there's a word I haven't used in a long time. I give props to Isotope for doing what they did. And then finally we have virtual tape machines on the mix bus set to the 1/2-inch 2-track machine, or T-Rax Tape Machine 99, K-Clip from Kazrog. I don't know if you can still buy this. I think it's in version 3 now. But anyway, K-Clip, you could either use this on the mix bus or on tracks as well. Be careful though about distortion. You don't want to cut off too much of your transient. Loudmax, for those of you who may not have a maximizer plugin from Ozone like I do, Loudmax is quite good at what it does on the mix bus. And then finally, like I was just saying, maximizer from Ozone. I don't know why the default is still IRC1, but anyway, IRC4 or 3 or even 2, excellent sounding plugin. I'm usually hitting a ceiling around -1 because that's kind of like what, I don't want to say it's the rule, but I like doing -1 because then when you go to compress it with either MP3 or Opus or AAC, you get less overs. And that's about it. Yeah, when I'm mastering, this is typically my last plugin besides a loudness meter, which I could also pull up on here. But usually I'm using Julian, so let me pull that up actually. Yeah, so Julian is usually sitting on my mix bus or master bus chain. And there you have it. I went through these plugins as quickly as I could and explained them as briefly as I could. This video is probably still going to be over a half hour long, but it is what it is. So let me narrow the mix bus down to the absolute bare essentials. Okay, that's the bare essentials. I actually forgot one very important set of plugins for the master bus or the mix bus or the mastering session, and that is bus compressors. I have a few of them, and first of all I'm going to recommend Buster SE from Analog Obsession. It is a freebie. Now if you like Analog Obsession's plugins, then you should become a Patreon member if you use them enough. It's not that expensive to become a Patreon. But I've actually heard this one's pretty good. It actually beats some of the paid for competitor plugins. And the GUI looks nice. I can't tell you for sure. I don't personally use it, but I downloaded it so you could see and check it out for yourself. Moving on. Now these are ones that I use on my own personal mixes. These are the Slate Digital Virtual Bus Compressors. There's 3 of them in this collection. You can also load up individual plugins as well. So going down the list, we have first the classic Solid State Logic bus compressor. Next is probably my favorite of this collection, the Focusrite Red. I believe it's the Red 3. And then finally down here is, it's based off of kind of sort of the Manley Varimu or a Fairchild 670. Either way, this is a tube one. These other are solid state. Not that that matters for me describing them. The bottom line is this. A great little plug-in collection. Again, I use them on my own personal mixes, and obviously you can also use these on tracks as well. I recommend basically disabling them like so. From within this plugin, you may also change the order of the plugins, so you can grab it from the left side, drag it, and that didn't work. Hold on. Okay, there's the red line. So the red line has to pop up, and there you go. So if you want to have the Varimu up top, there you go. Moving on. This is Sand. If you already bought the Sand collection, well, you also have compressors as well. They have the channel compressor, and they also have the 2 mix bus processors right on here. Click the different letters. And yeah, I thought that between this and FG Gray, these sounded the best, in my opinion. I tried them, smashing them, which you could also do with the SSL bus compressor. Smash a track, and then, especially like the drum bus. And both Sand and VBC, to my ears, sounded the best. Subjectively, obviously. Okay, so I talked about this one in a previous video, but yes, even on the mix bus, you can use FG Stress, which is an Empirical Labs distressor emulation, one of the best ones on the market, if not the best one. And if you set it to the 2-to-1 ratio and a slow attack, fast release, you can get this one sounding great on your mix bus. Also, I recommended this one highly as well. Black Rooster Audio's VLA3A. Put it in limit mode and go to town. Cytomic the Glue. This is also another SSL type bus compressor on the cleaner end, so maybe like the newer G-Bus rack mount version of the hardware. I don't know if it's really a one-for-one emulation, but it sounds great nonetheless. You can also use this plugin on tracks as well. I love that the GUI, it can be as small as you want it or as large as you want it, on a 4K screen, and everything in between. That rhymed. Next up, from IK Multimedia, the T-Rax bus compressor. Once again, another solid state logic quad bus compressor emulation. This one has a grit control, so you can have it clean-ish, or grit on is like having an older console type of bus compressor. I really like this one. I don't always use it. I usually go with VBC, but I'd say this one is like in third place. And let's see. The glue I would probably use fourth if I'm not happy with the other ones, which I rarely am. I kind of keep the glue around just because, I don't know, I like the GUI, and maybe sometimes I'll use it as a clean compressor. Anyway, moving on to IK Multimedia's Precision compressor. Now, this one is based off of a different type of hardware, the Neve 33609, I believe the N. So, like the more modern version of this hardware. So basically, Neve released their 2254, I believe was the name of the compressor, back in like the 60s, and then this compressor basically was an improved version of that, intended for, I believe, either the mix bus or during mastering. Either way, this plugin sounds great on the mix bus. It sounds great as a drum bus compressor. Do you need it if you have the other ones? Not necessarily. I bought it because I'm a plugin sloot. I'll admit it. But anyway, check it out. Regardless, maybe you prefer this flavor of bus compression over an SSL style, or a very moo style. Speaking of which, well, I'll bring it up now while I'm thinking about it. All right, so there's actually two excellent variable mu emulation plugins that I'm aware of. The first one is from Pulsar. It's simply called Mu, or Mu. I believe that's a German name. Anyway, this one I believe is emulated off the Manly Labs compressor. And then we also have, now this is actually free, M-Juke Jr., but then there's the bigger M-Juke from Klanghelm, and it's very affordable, as you can see, 24 euros, I believe that is. Anyway, that's about, we'll say $30 maybe, depending on which day you buy it. But bottom line is, this is a compressor that a lot of people like to use, and I recommend checking it out, not just for the mix bus, but for tracks as well. It's actually one that I've been meaning to pick up because it got a lot of praise back in the day, and I just forgot all about it. By the way, they need to update their year copyright there. Let's see what any lately news. Oh, maybe that's why they haven't updated the site since then. Made in its updates, so yeah. Well, either way, cool. Those are the two ones I wanted to show you all. Moving on, we have the White 2A from IK Multimedia. This is an LA2A emulation. So just like the VLA3A, a lot of people don't think to use the LA2A on the mix bus because a real hardware one is mono. But this is plugin world, and stereo tracks are just fine. So pop this thing in limit mode and try it out. You might be surprised. Moving on, we have Celestial from Acoustica Audio. I'm not sure if this is still free, but it has its different processors on it that you might want to try out. Again, not exactly like an SSL bus compressor, but it does what you may need it to do. It also has an equalizer. It has like a mid-side processor on it. So it goes beyond just a simple old bus compressor. We also have, speaking of very mu, from Acoustica Audio as well, Magenta, which I typically will use for the equalizers, but yes, it does have compressors, and I believe this one is based off of, well, one of these, there's like, 4 compressors? I don't know if this I don't know. I can't remember which one is which. I'll look it up briefly. Hold on. Acoustica Audio, Magenta, the C compressor, C1 and C2. So C1 is the variable mu in compress mode. And C2 is the variable mu in limit mode. So you may actually want to cascade or chain these plugins together in sequence, one after another, for the best quality. I believe this is the Slam compressor, I want to say. And then D2, I forget which one that is. But anyway, you have a lot of choices with Magenta. Oh, actually, I think, yeah, so if you choose the mono one, there's actually, yeah, there's the B compressor, which I believe is the Voxbox compressor. And then these other ones are, as I mentioned earlier. But the main thing is, this was sampled off of just one channel. So if you do send a stereo signal to it, it's like a typical plugin probably. But doing it this way, it has those like slight channel variations that real hardware has, if you care about stuff like that. And finally, from Arturia, we have the Tube Stay, which is a Retro Instruments, or really Gates stay limiter, which sounds great on vocals and bass, and also the mix bus, maybe. But, you know, I like this compressor in general. It's different from my other ones, you know, typical LA2A or LA3A. Well, this one is from a different company, kind of does the same thing, but it just sounds a little different. You know, I prefer this one for bass guitar, and the 2A or the 3A on vocals or what have you. Anyway, bottom line is, any of these compressors you can get a good mix bus sound from, but if I'm going to narrow it down to the absolute essentials, I'd say it's between these three plugins. I left this one in because it's free. I personally prefer this one, as I said before, and use this the most on my own mixes and masters. And then finally, the Precision Comp, just for a different flavor. You know, Neve, Class A, circuitry, transformers. This to me just, it has a different sound to it compared to this. But, you know, it really, between these two plugins, because you get 3 compressors with this one. 3 excellent sounding compressors with Slate Digital Virtual Bus Compressors collection, whatever it's called. And it's hard to like deny the fact that having 3 in 1 is a bad deal, you know? So, but yeah, if you're on a low budget, then this one should suffice to an extent. But, you know, if you have some money laying around, you can't go wrong with VBC. Anyway, thank you all for watching. This has been Adam for RealHomeRecording.com.